Cannabis legalization used to be a straightforward debate, public health, economic opportunity, and individual freedom. But now it's turned into something else entirely. Conservatives across the country are using cannabis as a pawn in broader political battles, linking it to hot-button issues like immigration and gender rights. These viral narratives aren't just random. They're part of a calculated strategy to exploit fear and outrage for clicks, shares, and ultimately control. Take Arkansas, for example. A conservative group called the Family Council Action Committee has been warning that expanding medical cannabis access will somehow turn the state into a drug use destination for undocumented immigrants. Their executive director, Jerry Cox, claims that the reform could allow illegal immigrants to get medical cannabis cards despite the clear safeguards that require valid state identification. Meanwhile, groups like Arkansas for Patient Access are calling this out for what it is, fear-mongering. They point out that 24 other states have recreational cannabis without any such problems. They say the measure's focus is on providing better access to rural and low-income residents, not on creating immigration crisis. Now, there's also Texas, right here in Texas, where some conservatives are trying cannabis legalization to their push for restricting gender-affirming care for minors. In an amicus brief filed with the Supreme Court, 10 Republican governors argued that states should have the same authority to restrict transgender health care as they do to create their own cannabis policies. This is all part of the United States versus Scrimity case, where transgender youths are challenging Tennessee's law banning gender-affirming care. Essentially, these governors are saying, if we can't make up our own cannabis rules, we should be, if we can make our own cannabis rules, we should be able to do the same with healthcare. It's no coincidence that these issues are being tangled together by wrapping cannabis into the cultural battlegrounds like immigration and gender rights. Conservatives are steering the conversation away from cannabis's actual benefits. The tactic is as old as it is effective. Shift the focus to something divisive and whip up a little fear along the way. And with the way social media works, fear-based content spreads like wildfire, keeping these narratives front and center. These stories aren't just distractions. They help maintain policies and disproportionately affect marginalized communities. Cannabis criminalization has long been used to incarcerate Black and Latino communities. And even though some states have moved to legalize it, thousands remain locked up for nonviolent cannabis offenses. Once someone gets tangled up in the criminal justice system, they're stuck, barred from housing, employment, and educational opportunities. Legalization may offer a way out for some, but as long as these narratives dominate the conversation, real progress will remain slow and uneven. It's hard not to notice how these tactics mirror other political maneuvers. Look at the way the NRA rebranded the AR-15 as a modern sporting rifle. They softened its image to make it more palatable, despite the rifle being at the center of so many mass shootings. Conservatives are now doing the same with cannabis, rebranding it as part of a larger cultural war to distract from the core issue, the need for criminal justice reform and economic equity. In the end, cannabis is more than just a plant or a policy question. It's become a symbol of the cultural battles shaping our country. And if these fear-based narratives continue to drive the debate, it's the most vulnerable communities that'll pay the price, staying locked in cycles of incarceration and poverty. So while legalization might seem like a fight about personal freedom, it's really about who gets to control the narrative and who profits along the way. I'm Stone Slade, reporting for the High at 9 News.
Man, Stone.
Hey.
Good story, Stone.
Hey, thanks, Ginny B.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there is a large number of prohibitionists that are hyping up a lot of these myths, but you know, there are a lot of you touched on so many subjects, Stone, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with it, but you know,
especially some of those subjects, we're not going to touch those at High 9.
Yeah, but you know,
well, but the campaign rhetoric now is where this is going to be pigeonholed, and I think it does a disservice to trying to undo this prohibition by triggering people who hear things that are part of the campaign narrative for their candidate, and then now they look unfavorably on cannabis. That's what I see as a downside of this. because we're going to have fights down the road on the rights of the LGBT community. We're going to have those issues. We need to have a real discussion about immigration in this country, broad scope, both parties, with, you know, the talking heads out of the picture. Sit down, close the door, stick some pizza under the room, and tell them to fix this shit, you know, and help it for the people. But I just see that I don't think anything's going to get done with this until the election's over, and I think it does a disservice on both sides to play these victim politics and these, you know, these memes that get people's butts to pucker up. Doesn't help cannabis at all.
Fair enough. What do you think about all this, Rachelle?
I mean, I just think it's interesting how they're trying to weaponize the plant in this kind of way, and lumping in all of these other hot button issues with pot. It doesn't really make much sense to me.
I totally agree with you on that one. I definitely agree on that. And
if I'm doing my diagram, I would say that all these topics come together in the things that regulators aren't actually doing anything about. So last time we saw any kind of meaningful LGBTQIA legislation was when. Last time we saw anything meaningful for cannabis is also when. When did we actually do anything about gun control? Okay. Borders, clearly, you know, we're right on top of that too. These are all the topics that are hot button and people will get emotional about, but that the government has really, truly not done anything to deal with.